This is Boston Red on the 20th of August 2013. The title of our episode is Canadian Ted. That's Ted Cruz. He's the senator from the state of Texas. We'll be to him in a minute, but first we need to take care of some other items here. We'll go to the state of Virginia and the governor there, McDonald. McDonald, if you recall, when he was hailed into office, was seen as a bright star, a new kind of quote-unquote Republican, a compromiser, one that would go to great heights in Virginia. He was able to literally, we'll use the nomenclature here, whip Craig Deese. Craig Deese came from the Appalachian part of Virginia, and although his heart was in the right place, he's still following the Cincinnati Reds as far as we know. But unfortunately for the Senator Deese, he was not able to organize his campaign properly. He was conflicted between where the votes were, that was in Northern Virginia, and his Shenandoah Valley, where he was from, a more conservative type of social makeup there in that area. And thus his campaign just never could hit on 8 cylinders, or 6 cylinders, or whatever in between. Thus he was in an unusual predicament, behind in the polls, could not catch up, had very poor handlers or consultants, and tried to do a lot of it himself. He just was not able to catch up. Whereas McDonald was able to obtain endorsements of people like old Bob from BET fame there, Jones, wife, I should say, there, and various others. So in other words, he cemented South African Americans into his campaign, and he was able to grab the moderates, a lot of the Virginia types, but at the same time he appealed to the conservatives because they had nowhere else to go, quite literally, the Tea Party types. And a lot of what he proposed was the same type of stuff that Alex, the legislative council, born of the Koch brothers of Los Angeles, now of Palm, where are they anyway? They are all over there. Well, they may be in Palm Springs. They're formerly Wichita, Kansas. They are in Miami Beach, or that area there, around that area. It doesn't matter. Nonetheless, I think one Koch is still in California, so to speak. But nonetheless, old Bob fit the model, pushed through the legislation, but now he is as the character in the movie. Let's see who played him. Have to do some thinking back there. It was a Burt Reynolds movie, and it was Jackie Gleason. He said something to the effect, boy, you're in a heap of trouble. Well, Bob McDonald's in a heap of trouble. And this is from Politico, but you'll get the same thing from the Washington Post anywhere else. He and his wife received hundreds of thousands of dollars in gifts and loans by Star Scientific, that is Johnny Williams there. According to Politico, done irreparably damaged the Republican governor's once sterling public image. Well, his image is not sterling anymore. It's not even brass. He's down now to 10. Virginia has some of the laxest state ethics laws in the country, and to pursue the most serious federal charges, prosecutors need to prove that the governor took the gifts with the intent to provide some kind of quid pro quo. McDonald has argued that he was in the dark about many of the gifts given to his wife. He maintains that he would have gone to luncheons at the governor's mansion for one of Williams' products, and arranged a meeting with Secretary of the State's Health Department, whether or not he received anything of value from the business executive. The governor devised breaking the law. For McDonald, as of now, I see no smoking gun. That's from Lenny Davis. He was in the wheeling-dealing administration of Slick Bill Clinton, who incidentally made his 67th birthday. I believe it's today, is old Wild Bill's birthday. Wish him a happy birthday, a belated one, whichever one comes first. I haven't seen anything remotely close. There's a lot of innuendo, no doubt about this. This is Lenny Davis talking. I don't see any government action following the gifts or donations. To be sure, much remains unknown about what the evidence the government has on McDonald. That has not been leaked. One bad sign for the governor. The Washington Post first discussed Monday's meeting between lawyers and the prosecutors in Alexandria, Virginia. And that's the famous place where they'd like to see Mr. Jim Snowden. The friendly government prosecution place, not so much for white-collar crimes, however, but for espionage and espionage-related, any government-type activities, crimes that the government is prosecuting, you can forget it. He reportedly said McDonald thanked him for gifts. The governor denies knowing anything about or discussing ways in which he could help the company. The Star Scientific representative also told investigators this month that they will not be prosecuted, were told by some government investigators in the probe. Josh Bierman, the former public corruption prosecutor, Justice Department guesses that bribery charges are probably not in play, but McDonald could still be hit on the statutes covering false statements. They usually get people on that. To authorities, are gratuities provided to a public officer for an action taken or expected to be taken. Timeline matters, emails, calendar entries, proof of conversations between the governor and Williams. Also, Williams, before important deals were made, they looked at all that. They already knew about it. What the Justice Department has been good at lately has been identifying payments with either the knowledge of an act or an act that was executed. That's according to Mr. Bierman. Then essentially they have to build it around that. They can do that. They've had a lot of experience on that. It's a challenging case for prosecutors, but frankly it's not so difficult. That cases brought in the even north realm, he added, referring to the public corruption cases. Jack Agonoff, he's out now, and old Bob Nye, he was a Republican congressman in Ohio, flying high, and he left in disgrace. But nonetheless, let's see, Shackforth, he's director of the state and local leadership at George Mason University, said prosecuting McDonald would be a real challenge. He was an assistant prosecutor counsel on the Senate Bank subcommittee on the Harrison Williams, the senator convicted in the Abscan scandal in the late 80s. It's hard here, he said. You've got a governor going out of office because he can't run again, so the idea that you're going to devote any significant political and financial resources to try to go after someone, that would be very hard to prove. It seems to me unlikely. The line between politics and serving your constituents and politics and delivering something in exchange for a benefit rendered is a hard line to draw. That's according to Professor Shackforth. Shackforth said what apparently a settlement with McDonald agrees to sign would be a big trip for anyone at the Justice Department. Williams and Mary, law professor Green, explains the burden on prosecution is to prove more than just that the gifts were accepted. No doubt about that. There has to be a quid pro quo involved in the situation. So look at this meeting here, sort of my own curiosity going on here. Attorneys for McDonald meet with prosecutors as a key phase in the probe opens here. This is from the Washington Post. And they talk about Williams here. And according to those rules, prosecutors would find it more difficult to prosecute McDonald after Labor Day, given that Virginia go to the polls on the 5th to choose his successor. Well, if you're out of office and going out in a hurry, that is a little bit different situation. They have competing accounts here. McDonald did not know that Williams paid for a shopping trip for Marie McDonald in New York. That was in 2011. The First Lady gave the watch to the governor as a Christmas present, which she bought a watch with the words 71st Governor of Virginia on it. It was a Rolex. A person with knowledge of the probe said the governor's side contends that the First Lady did not ask Williams for the watch, and McDonald learned that Williams bought it only after he found out about the FBI investigation. I guess his wife didn't tell him. The governor also contends that he knew little of his wife's decision to buy stock in a Star. They said he learned of a $50,000 loan Williams made to McDonald's wife about 2 weeks after the money arrived. So McDonald is not taking care of his home business very much and didn't know what his wife's doing. Well, sometimes that's a good idea. By the time the stock had plummeted its value, and he urged her to sell. A month later, she did so, only to repurchase her shares again without his knowledge. And oh boy, there's a dispute that Williams and McDonald personally discussed the $70,000 executive provided. There's more going on here. Mobile Realty Partners, a limited corporation, McDonald set up with his sister to manage to Virginia. McDonald, incidentally, is from Virginia Beach, Virginia. McDonald said he made no promises to Williams in exchange for money. A state-funded lawyer appointed to represent the governor has conducted an audit showing that the Star Scientific received no economic incentives, targeted budget appropriations, state contracts, or appointments. The governor's side contends that his actions were far more limited. He attended a mansion event launching anabolic only briefly. His wife was there. Helped Williams get a public a meeting to pitch his product to the Virginia Secretary of Health and Resources. And that was covered in the last article. So McDonald is basically on a see no evil, do no evil, hear no evil, and he's leaving office. And I guess with this situation open, he won't be running again. Professor Tobias, he's from the Richmond School of Law, said prosecutors may conversely decide not to pursue any charges. McDonald, his wife, both could cut deals to avoid a trial. The prosecutors did not want to pursue the charges. Well, they probably will cut a deal if there's anything here at all. The Department of Justice was still in Politico, became a little more gun shy. That was after they prosecuted Ted Stevens. He's dead now. Fell apart out in Alaska there. Of course, he lost a race. Jesse Jr., they had a target on him. They got him. Of course, he was an African American, and he's going to jail 2.5 years. That's not too bad. And our old political type here, William Dollar Bill Jefferson, out of New Orleans, Louisiana. He's in 2009, so that means basically, let's see, old Bill has been in the big house 4 years now. For soliciting bribes, depriving citizens of honest service, money laundering, using his office as a racketeering enterprise, $90,000 cash, including marked bills, hidden in his freezer. And of course, there was an infamous one there. Duke Cunningham out of California was a Republican, went to jail after being convicted of bribery, mail fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion charges in 2006. He's out now, as far as I know. Prosecutors had a bribe menu. In other words, he had a menu of how he could take care of you. he lived on a yacht given to him by a defense president. It was parked off the shore in D.C. So one dynamic gathering much buzz in McDonald's case is that the government and First Lady Marie McDonald have different attorneys who reportedly meet separately with the prosecutor. Oh boy, that's not too good. Bierman, the former prosecutor who now works on white-collar defense cases, is a partner at Rosenberg Mitchum Company, said the husband-wife privilege presents one from needing to testify against the other, but Maureen McDonald could also be an exculpatory witness, testifying on the oath that her husband really was out of the loop. If she says, look, I have a bright line between what I took and what I share with my husband, he couldn't have known about it, Williams is lying, then it becomes a really a he said, she said, said him. In other words, Williams is the entrepreneur is trying to save his own neck. But no doubt he didn't give old McDonald these things for nothing, period. So Governor McDonald, as one would say, twist in the wind on this affair. The reason we spent so much time on this is because the so-called denial of public type of representation, or quality representation, has been used a number of times. And we see in Politico, Bo Biden, that's Vice President Biden's son, is in a hospital in Texas. He's had some problems before. I believe he had a stroke. He suffered a stroke in 2010. He's 44, so he's got immediate problems, medical problems, that is. Unfortunate situation. But as we go merrily along here, look at a few little items while we're here on internal poll. Nothing going on that. This is Bobby Jindal down in Louisiana at 50%. He's term limited, so he's gone one way or the other. On Beyond the World, we talked in depth about the threat of the British authorities under, I believe it's called Section 7. They literally informed the Guardian that they'd put him out of business if they didn't surrender the papers that, let me make sure I get this right here. Oops, this is the wrong one here. The wrong little person here. But anyway, that the person at the Guardian, that's Glenn there, that he in fact is going to publish some secret documents procured from Ed Snowden. What they did was destroyed the drives in the basement of the Guardian newspaper there in London. It's an interesting story how they were able to do that, and that was after they had stopped the partner of Glenn Greenwald at Heathrow Airport. There's a long situation there going on that. They stopped him, kept him for 9 hours. We talked about that last night. But again, applying more pressure to the Guardian newspaper. Of course, the Guardian and their correspondents in many countries besides actually being in the UK. We'll go on now with this is the birth certificate of Canadian Cruz. This is the title of the episode. And here's a little bit of background. And what's at stake here is this. Under Canadian law, if you're born in Canada, you're automatically a citizen. In the case of Ted Cruz, he was born in Canada, and we'll read, this is from the Dallas Morning News here. We'll read it in a minute, but His mother was an American citizen. His father was Cuban. In fact, his father was involved in geological work out in Alberta. And nonetheless, his father finally gained citizenship in 2005. Let's go to the article. He was born to an American mother, and thus he became an instant citizen. This is a whole birther thing behind Barack Obama. His mother, no doubt about it, was an American citizen, so he would have instantly became an American citizen. The question there was, in terms of presidents, what they called natural born. We'll get that in a minute also. But on the Canadian law, he also became a citizen of that country the moment he was born. Unless the Texas Senate formally renounces that citizenship, he will remain a citizen of both. That's from legal experts. That means he can assert the right to vote in Canada, even run for Parliament on a lunch break from the Senate, and he could head to the nearby embassy and one flying the bright red maple green flag and pull out his Calgary birth certificate, Calgary, Alberta, and obtain a passport. He is a Canadian. That's Toronto attorney Stephen Green. He's a past chair of the Canadian Bar Association's Citizen and Immigration section. The circumstances of Cruz's birth have fueled a similar debate over the eligibility to run for president. Knowing or not, dual citizenship is apparent if inconvenient trope for the Tea Party farbread. Now this is where the birthers and those right-wingers come into play, because and this is also where the cast of clowns. We did a program called the Clown Car that Donald Trump is on in company, talking about birthers. So Donald Trump going to investigate this one. Senator Cruz became a U.S. citizen at birth. He never has to go through a nationalization process after birth, become a citizen. As spokesman Catherine Frazier, to our knowledge, he never had a Canadian citizenship, but he does. The U.S. Constitution allows only natural-born American citizens to serve as president. Most legal scholars have studied the question, agree that it includes an American-born overseas to an American parent such as Cruz. So he would not be disqualified on that, but it would be a lengthy debate. Detractors have derailed the whole Cruz as Canadian Cruz. That's the title of the episode, saying he can't run for president. Well, that's not true either. And they asked Donald Trump about that, and Trump just didn't know. Mr. Cruz, of course, a Harvard-trained lawyer. He clerked for the U.S. Supreme Court. I guess that was Rehnquist. Disagrees. He reasserted last week that being an American by birth makes him eligible. Two visits in recent weeks to Iowa. The first to the state's win of the field presidential candidates, and set off a fresh flurry of commentary on the issue. He heads to New Hampshire, another early voting state, on Friday, another strong sign that he's eyeing 2016. The political impact of his citizenship status remains to be seen. Doubts about President Obama's heritage dogged him through 2008 and persists among hardcore birthers. We talked about that, and they talked about in a number of episodes, but that is fueled by racism. Now, we'll see how selective they are. Officials at Citizenship and Immigration Canada said that without signed a privacy waiver from Cruz, they could not discuss his case. Generally speaking, on the Canadian Citizenship Act of 1947, those born in Canada were automatically citizens at birth, unless their parents were diplomats. His were not. That's from the ministry spokesman, Julia Lafontaine. For the first time, Cruz released his birth certificate Friday. That was to the Dallas Morning News. It was dated a month after. That's not unusual either. I guess he was born on October 22nd of 1970. It shows that Rafael Edward Cruz was born to Rafael Bienvenido Cruz. a geologist consultant born in Cuba, and the former Eleanor Elizabeth Wilson, born in Wilmington, Delaware. Her status made the baby at birth an American citizen. Well, nobody's denying that. And she registered at birth with the U.S. consulate, Fraser said, and the future senator received a U.S. passport in 1986 ahead of a high school trip to London. Rafael Cruz, now a pastor in suburban Dallas, fled Cuba for Texas as a teen in 1957. He remained a Cuban citizen, as we stated previously here, until 2005. That was when his young son decided to get into politics. He'd been in Texas politics. Until 1947, people born in Canada were a British subject, part of the Commonwealth. The Canadian system adopted after that closely mirrors the U.S. Both confer citizenship automatically to anyone born on their territory and the children of citizens, even when the birth takes place overseas. By 1970, Cruz had moved to the Canadian oil patch. That's why they were there. His father was in a seismic data business. If a child was born in the territory, he's Canadian, period. That's from France Houle, a law professor at the University of Montreal. He can ask for a passport and he can vote. The fact that Cruz left Canada when he was 4 doesn't affect the issue, no doubt about that. If you leave 2 minutes after you're born, you're still a Canadian citizen. It's important to remember that. They can feel as American as they want, but the question of citizenship is determined by the laws of the territory in which you were physically born. That is from Allison Christians. She's another law professor at McGill University. That's also in Montreal. He's a Canadian citizen, period, as far as the Canadian law professors there. As a Cuban, Rafael Cruz probably could have requested citizenship for his son, experts said. Even if he wanted to, the Cuban consulate banned dual citizenship, so he could forgetting it. Anyway, the U.S. and Cuba have very similar legal patterns and requirements. That's from David Abraham. He's a professor at the University of Miami. The situation reflects the overlapping jurisdictions. That is from Demetrius Patermitris, president of the Washington-based Migration Policy Institute, who called birthright citizenship common in English-speaking countries. If Ted Cruz is born in Canada, he's Canadian. He is American. He's a dual citizen. There's no doubt about that. That's, of course, common in French-speaking Quebec also, as far as it would be out in the territories like where he was. And they cite a case here of the Liberal Party leader, Stephanie Anne Dion. She's born in Quebec City, also a citizen of France. Unlike the U.S., which requires its citizens to pay taxes, no matter where they live in the world, Canada only taxes people who reside there. So Ted Cruz doesn't have to worry about Tea Party in Canada. He'll only have to do that if he is there. So people rarely give up their citizenship. Relinquishment process is easy enough. It takes from a few weeks to a year. There's a 4-page form with a $100 fee, $100 Canadian. Applicant must appear before a special judge to prove they have citizenship elsewhere and aren't engaged in fraud. Basically, same thing as changing one's name in the U.S. Green, one of Canada's top immigration lawyers, has counseled pro sports teams, athletes, major corporations. He knows one person who renounced his Canadian citizenship as a condition of joining the U.S. Secret Service. I've done it for people, he said. No problem. Well, there's no problem there. So thus, old Canadian Ted comes in a controversy that the Tea Party types no doubt will use against him for a very, very long time, because they see this as something to differentiate him out. It really doesn't matter very much, because old Canadian Ted is part of the hardcore Tea Party types, and that Corps has a very limited numbers. So there they are. And let's see, finally here, Anton Scalia, don't invest in minorities, is making, let's see, the U.S. Supreme Court is making decisions that should be left to Congress or other people from wiretapping to invading new classes of minorities. That's what he said on Monday in apparent reference to the court's recent decision on gay marriage and benefits same-sex couples. Scalia said it's not a function of the court to create exceptions outside the Constitution unless the majority of the people agree with that. It's not up to the court to invent, did I say invest? Invent, I'm sorry, well, basically the same thing. Invent new minorities that get special protection. He was out in Bozeman, Montana, a packed hotel room. No doubt it went over very well in Bozeman, Montana. Far away there in Idaho, not very far away, I should say, is the various Aryan nations and others. So Scalia fit in there with that situation. Questions such as National Security Administration surveillance of phone records, privacy questions in the Patriot Act were once answered by Congress, which knows how serious the threat compares to the intrusiveness. Wait a minute here. Intrusiveness. What happens when you lose your pointer here? I guess individual privacy, and we'll just wing it here because we lost where we were. Spoke before, of surveillance, but now the courts are doing that. All three branches. We are the one that knows the least about the nature of threats but to the country, and we have the least ability to find out about it. Well, that's why they have discovery hearings on the district level. The Supreme Court, of course, an order hearing, but the district court will, as they did in the Brown case, they will get the facts and, as they say, form the appropriate remedy. He spoke before 300 people in Bozeman in a gathering sponsored the Federalist Society, a very right-wing fascistic operation which he helped launch more than 30 years ago to fight the perception of liberal bias at the nation's law schools. Groups trying to open a channel, they didn't have one in Bozeman. He was appointed to the Supreme Court by Northern Ronald Reagan in 1986, and he'll be 77 years old. So depending on his longevity, he could be around there another 10 years. Who knows? I know nothing about his physical shape. In 2010, he gave a speech at the Montana State University Museum of the Rockies. He answered some questions written by the audience, including hot-button issues in Montana's Second Amendment right to bear arms. Well, can they bear shoulder-fired rocket launchers? What remains to be determined and appears to be the scope of the amendment that people can keep and bear arms, he said. He said the court will have to take those cases as they come, but his approach would be to apply the historical understanding of the Second Amendment, which was not just in self-defense against animals and home intruders, but for the protection for people to protect themselves against a tyrannical leader. Well, in that case, they get a shoulder, fired missile and fired at the president's limo. See how far that would get them. Dismissed the idea of term limits for Supreme Court justices. Now, this is very interesting. That at one time, I recall they had these signs up, impeach Earl Warren, and at the same time limiting Supreme Court justices. The right said that, as in time limits for political offices they were sponsoring until they came into office. And you don't hear the right wing talking about limiting terms unless it's in some states like in Louisiana, but it doesn't matter there anyway. He also called the notion of the imperial president garbage, saying the president is weakened by design and Congress holds the real power. Congress can do whatever it wants if it gets its act together. Well, he also was asked about the most wretched decision since he'd been on the bench. Well, Obamacare is too recent, he laughed. Dissented with the minority opinion, but left President Obama's health care overhaul mostly intact. Well, they did, in fact. But Scalia is one of the old head operators around here. He's been around a very long time. And he is part of what Reagan left us, a heap of garbage. And there are some others. Alito is there. Robert's much more dangerous than Scalia in the sense that he is younger than Scalia. There on that court, and it'll have to be seen other appointees that are moderates. Now, to the Supreme Court, as far as appointees has been concerned, we've had few, if any, that have been appointed to that court that have not been the types that are of the same cloth that, say, William O. Douglas or Justice Black or Justice Warren were cut of. You now have the Byron White types, which they would call the court left primarily, that are left there. Even Justice Souter is gone. Justice Ginsburg is getting up in age. So there really are two. There is Kagan there, and Sotomayor, but Sotomayor is here and Sotomayor is there. But with that note, we'll move on out of here. We'll be on BR on the World, that's our International Affairs program, tomorrow about 6 p.m., probably be more like 4 or 5, somewhere around that p.m. hour. We, of course, archive. You can go back to us. Did a very good program on The Guardian and what surrounded The Guardian there, and also Mr. Greenwald and his partner there, Miranda. This is Boston Red for the episode Canadian Ted. Could be Texas Ted also. And the Port Laureate of Newark, New Jersey. One LA Bill Graham would say, peace out. Good day. We'll talk to you soon.